time, my gym teacher's wife found out that he was having an affair with me. So a little background information. I was a sophomore in high school, and the one night my friends and I were playing Truth or Dare. Well, a little bit into the game, my friends dared me to download Tinder and message the first 5 guys that I saw. And what do you know, the last guy that I saw in there was my gym teacher. So obviously I messaged him and I was like, hey, OMG, it's blah, blah, blah from your 3rd period class. And obviously I wasn't expecting him to answer, but he did, and he was like, oh, this is weird. How are you? So after that, my friends were like, oh, okay, like it's time to delete it. So I pretended that I did, and when they left, I started messaging him more. So we had been messaging that whole week, and one thing led to another. Next thing I knew, he was sneaking me out of my house at 2 a.m. And he was like 32, so he wasn't that old. Well, for the next month, we were going to restaurants that were like an hour away. Almost every weekend, he would rent out a hotel for us. Well, the one night his wife was supposed to be out with some friends, so he invited me over like for part 2. Part 2 about how my gym teacher's wife found out that he was having an affair with me. So like I said, his wife was supposed to be gone the whole night because she was at the bar with her friends and they were supposed to get in a hotel. So he invited me over. So we went swimming in his pool, then we did the nasty. Well, a few hours later, him and I were sitting on the couch watching a movie. And his wife kept calling him. But he just kept ignoring it, saying that she was fine and he didn't want to answer the call and ruin our time together. So we go upstairs, lay down to go to sleep. And it's like 4 a.m. at this point. So I shit you not, literally an hour later, I wake up to his wife carefully shaking me to wake me up. She goes, honey, come downstairs. I don't want to wake him up. He has work tomorrow. And I'm like, what the actual fuck? So I went downstairs and she's like, sit at the table with me. So we're sitting at the table and she's like, I hope that we can keep this quiet. She was like, my husband's done this before. And that she can't have any of her friends knowing or anybody at school because she's a PTA mom. So she offered me money to keep my mouth shut. And then she let me go back upstairs and lay with him. What the fuck? Storytime, my boyfriend caught me cheating on him with his older brother. A little background information. I was a sophomore in high school and him and I had been dating for about 3 months. And every day after school I would go over to his house. Sometimes he would be late coming home though because he would have soccer practice. But I would go to his house anyways because I was friends with his sister, who was also in the same grade as me. Well, his older brother was a senior in high school. Well, the one day I went over his house and his sister wasn't home. She was tutoring at school or something. And neither were his parents. So I texted my boyfriend saying that I was just gonna go home. And he said, no, stay, I'll be there in like 30 minutes. While I was sitting on the couch, his brother comes downstairs. So he comes and sits on the couch next to me and puts on a movie. And he could have sat anywhere because they had a big ass couch, but he sat right next to me. So we start talking, and a little bit into the movie, he gets closer to me. And one thing led to another, and then we were in his room. And literally 2 minutes later, we heard the front door open. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how my boyfriend caught me cheating on him with his older brother. So we heard the door open downstairs, and at this point we were both naked. So I ran to my boyfriend's room as fast as I could, and as soon as he came upstairs, he saw me without any clothes on. So then I had to play it off like I was ready to do the nasty with him. So for the next 2 weeks straight, I was going to my boyfriend's house and doing the nasty with his brother while he was at soccer practice. Well, the one day after his brother and I did the nasty, I fell asleep in his brother's bed. So my boyfriend came upstairs. And he didn't see me anywhere, so he was knocking on his brother's door. And we didn't hear anything because we were sleeping, so he just opened the door. And I woke up and he was screaming at both of us. So him and his brother got into a fight, like literally fist fighting. I was trying to break it up, but then I was also trying to put clothes on. And when my boyfriend saw me trying to get dressed, he took my clothes and told me to get out. And when I wouldn't get out because I didn't have clothes, so he literally grabbed me and threw me outside. And then he came back and threw a towel at me, so I had to walk home with only a towel.
Story time about how my boyfriend caught me with my sugar daddy. Quick disclaimer, this is not my story time and my eyes are red because I got sunscreen in them. So my boyfriend and I have been together for almost 4 years. Relationship itself is good, but the only problem is that he doesn't really pay for anything. I pay for the bills, almost all of the rent, and I even pay when we go on dates. I've always had a good job and he's always had like mediocre jobs here and there. I've always told him that I want him to get a better job and he says no because he's comfortable at the job that he's at. Meanwhile, I'm busting my butt and paying for everything. The only things that he pays for are when he goes out to eat by himself or if he's hanging out with his friends, or sometimes here and there he'll buy groceries, but it's really rare. So 2 years ago I decided to find myself a sugar daddy. Number 1, I want the money, and number 2, I just want to feel taken care of. So I went through a few sugar daddies and I didn't tell my boyfriend that I was actually doing this. Finally, I found myself the perfect sugar daddy. He gives me $5,000 a month and takes me out shopping whenever I want. We usually go out to fancy dinners, movies, things like that. Whenever I'm with my sugar daddy, I tell my boyfriend that I'm hanging out with friends. I was out with my sugar daddy one night and my boyfriend walks into the restaurant. Part 2 is up. I'm having dinner with my sugar daddy when when my boyfriend walks into the restaurant. By the way, my sugar daddy did not know I had a boyfriend. As soon as I see my boyfriend walk in, I tell my sugar daddy that I have to go to the bathroom. I literally bolted to the bathroom. As I'm in the bathroom stall freaking out, my boyfriend calls me. So I answer the phone and he says, "Hey, are you at the restaurant? I swear to God, I just saw you run into the bathroom. Who's that guy with you at the table?" I was caught. I had no option but to be honest with my boyfriend. I tell him to come to the bathroom and he comes in and I explain to him that it is my sugar daddy. Then he stares at me for a few seconds and asks me, "How much money does he give you?" I decided to lie and I said 3,000 instead of the 5,000. And my boyfriend says, "Wow." And I'm like, "Aren't you mad?" Then he said, "No, you're just gonna have to share now." Excuse me? Then I told him I didn't want to be in the relationship any longer because he's a man-child and I had to pay for everything. Begged me not to leave him and he said that he would get a better job. We're still in the bathroom at this point and my sugar daddy's waiting for me outside. Then my boyfriend says, "If you don't want me to go out there and tell him that you have a boyfriend, you better start giving me some of that money." I was shocked. Part 3 is up. My boyfriend threatened me and told me that if I didn't share the money, he would tell my sugar daddy that I had a boyfriend. I believed him. I went back to my sugar daddy's table and we basically had dinner with my boyfriend sitting across from us having dinner with his friends. The whole time I was trying to figure out how I would break up with my boyfriend without having to share the money that my sugar daddy gave me. I told my sugar daddy that I wasn't feeling well. He called me an Uber to take me back to my apartment. I got to my apartment and I started packing my stuff. Like, I knew my boyfriend was bad for making me pay for everything, but I didn't know he was that bad. Freaking threatened me. Then he starts calling my phone, sends a text message and it says, "I'm gonna be home in 5 minutes." So I gathered all my things, ran downstairs and waited behind the building for the Uber. And my boyfriend sees me, comes up to me and rips my bag away from me. Tried to get my phone, but I took it away from him. And he said that I had to share the money that my sugar daddy gave me. Finally, the Uber arrives and I jump in. My boyfriend actually pulled me by my hair to try to get me out of the car. I've blocked him and haven't spoken to him since, and I'm still with my sugar daddy. I'm having dinner with my sugar daddy when my boyfriend walks into the restaurant. By the way, my sugar daddy did not know I had a boyfriend. As soon as I see my boyfriend walk in, I tell my sugar daddy that I have to go to the bathroom. I literally bolted to the bathroom. As I'm in the bathroom stall freaking out, my boyfriend calls me. So I answer the phone and he says, "Hey, are you at the restaurant? I swear to God, I just saw you run into the bathroom. Who's that guy with you at the table?" I was caught. I had no option but to be honest with my boyfriend. I tell him to come to the bathroom and he comes in and I explain to him that it is my sugar daddy. Then he stares at me for a few seconds and asks me, "How much money does he give you?" I decided to lie and I said 3,000 instead of the 5,000. And my boyfriend says, "Wow." And I'm like, "Aren't you mad?" And he said, "No, you're just gonna have to share now." Excuse me? Then I told him I didn't want to be in the relationship any longer because he's a man-child and I had to pay for everything. Begged me not to leave him and he said that he would get a better job. We're still in the bathroom at this point and my sugar daddy's waiting for me outside. Then my boyfriend says, "If you don't want me to go out there and tell him that you have a boyfriend, you better start giving me some of that money." I was shocked. Part 3 is up.
Storytime about how I tried to get my boyfriend back for cheating on me, but I ended up with an STD instead. So a little background information. I was dating this guy for about 7 months whenever I was in high school. And I would always hang out with him, his guy friends, and their girlfriends. Well, the one night we were hanging out at my house and he kept checking my phone. And he said it was because he was waiting for his mom to text my phone. So then he had to go to the bathroom and he asked to take my phone with him. And I said no because that's weird as fuck. So while he's in the bathroom, I get a text from a random number. And it's a bunch of videos that my boyfriend took of him doing the nasty with other girls. And there were like 15 videos, all different girls. So by this time he's been in the bathroom for like 15 minutes. So I go to confront him while he's in the bathroom, like I do not care at this point. And he's gone. My bathroom window is wide open. My curtains are broken. So then I start to text all of his best friends. Like for part 2. Part 2. So it turns out the person who sent it to me was one of the girls in my friend group. So at that point, every single person in that friend group was dead to me and I needed to get every single one of them back. So like I said, I started texting all my ex's best friends and I asked every single one of them if they wanted to hook up. 4 of them said yes, the other 3 just blocked me. And the 4 who said yes all had girlfriends in our friend group. Well, down there. So I had my mom take me to the doctors. Turns out I have a fucking STD. And nobody knew about it, at least not yet. Well, my boyfriend came over that same day asking if we could get back together. So I thought, what an even better way to get back at him. Give him what I have. Mind you, I was still hooking up with all 4 of his best friends. And then like 2 weeks later, my boyfriend started talking to me about how he was also having problems down there. And I was like, oh, maybe you should go to the doctors. So after he went to the doctors, he texts me and he goes, yeah, I have an STD. So then I sent him all the videos of his best friends and I said, yeah, I hope you enjoy living with that for the rest of your life. And I also gave it to all of his friends and then they spread it to their girlfriends. Payback's a bitch.
Story time about how I lost my V card and my dad found out. My dad is insanely strict. Couldn't wear skirts or shorts, wasn't allowed to wear makeup, I couldn't have guy friends, I was never allowed to go out anywhere by myself. Instead, my dad sent my older brother with me everywhere. He hated and I hated. By the way, I was 16 when this all happened. I needed some type of freedom, so I decided to join track and field. I asked my dad for permission and he said yes. At first, I loved it. I trained every day after school and I also met new friends, guys and girls. And my brother wasn't there, so I was able to talk to all the boys. Well, there was this one boy, let's call him Jake. Jake was so cute. I knew that he liked me and he obviously knew that I liked him. He was the fastest guy in the group and he would go out of his way to help me out and give me advice. So we started talking on the phone almost every day for like 10 minutes. He knew my dad was strict. We would see each other at practice almost every day. He asked me to be his girlfriend and I said yes. It was our little secret. We decided to stay late after practice one day. We thought we were by ourselves at the gym. We started making out and one thing led to another. So my boyfriend and I were doing it at the school gym. We thought we were by ourselves. It happened really fast and we got dressed. Then I went home and had dinner with my parents. Everything was completely normal and fine. Until I get a text message from my friend. Her day. My mom was crying the whole time and my dad was just yelling at me. He took away my phone, my computer, and even took the door down from my room so that I had no privacy. Then my dad made me get in the car and he drove me to Jake's house. We knocked on the door and his mom opened the door. She tried to calm my dad down, but he wasn't listening. Then Jake comes downstairs and my dad just starts yelling at him too. But Jake tried to deny everything. His mom told him to stop lying and then he finally said yes. We did it. My dad told him to never look for me again. I never saw Jake after that, and now that it's been a few years, I'm dating a girl now and I don't know how to...
Story time about how my sister and I almost got beat up by a 40-year-old man. So there was this one girl who would bully my sister and I on the bus in elementary school. Well, one day we told the principal and the principal called her dad. And she made up this whole story about the only reason why she did it to us was because we were bullying her. So the next day, after we told the principal, her dad was at the bus stop. And he comes up to us, taps us both on the shoulder, and says, "If you guys ever bully my daughter again, I will hold you down while me, her, and her sister beat the shit out of you guys." So we got to the school that day and we called our dad. We told him what happened, but he was kind of questioning it. Until our neighbor actually walked up to our house and knocked on the door and told my dad. And I guess at the bus stop, everybody kind of looked at the guy like, are you fucking crazy? Because my dad at the time was a bodybuilder. And he was like, what the fuck is he gonna do? Like for part two. Part 2, because I don't want y'all to get mad at me again. And by the way, for everybody asking for that part 2, it is already posted. Okay, let's get into it. I'm not saying that because my dad's a bodybuilder that like he could kick his ass. It's just like you don't mess with, you know, a dad's kid, like girls, especially we were as girls. So he called the school. We ended up going to court, and my dad like at court was literally like, if you ever lay a hand on my daughters again or like threaten my daughters like that, I will literally kill you. The judge yelled at my dad for that. And then he had to apologize to us, and because basically like he threatened us, and then like he got in trouble a little bit more for that, and like they did some other stuff that I don't really remember, but he wasn't allowed near us. He wasn't allowed to go to the bus stop anymore. He wasn't allowed near the school. If we were at the school, like it was traumatizing. Like, anyways, thank you guys so much for 700, almost 700,000. I love you guys, and that is part 2.
Story time about how I found out my girlfriend was cheating on me with my sister. Girlfriend and I have been together for 8 months, and when COVID hit, we decided to just quarantine together, and basically we moved in together. Oh, and yes, I am a girl. Got to know each other really well, and we really enjoy the relationship. Well, my sister lost her job because of COVID, and she asked me if she could move in with my girlfriend and I. Of course, I said yes. She's my sister, and I totally have her back. So my sister moved into our guest bedroom. My sister also had a boyfriend. Let's call him Jason. Jason was so in love with my sister, he wanted to propose and even asked me to look at rings. Well, Jason proposed and my sister said no. Everyone was shocked. My sister didn't give a reason why she didn't want to marry him, but she was really depressed. So my girlfriend would talk to her and just try to be her friend and comfort her. And I was happy that my girlfriend was trying to help out my sister. Jason kept trying to get my sister back, but she kept saying no. Well, one day I wake up from a nap and I hear weird noises coming from my sister's bedroom. I swing the door open and guess what I see? My sister and my girlfriend naked on her bed making out. The audacity. Part 2 is up. I walk in on my girlfriend and my sister doing the dirty. They both jump off the bed and start getting dressed really quickly. I left the room and sat on the couch. I couldn't even speak. My sister comes out of the room and asked me to understand. She explained to me that my sister was so kind to her after her breakup that she couldn't help but falling in love. I couldn't believe she said love. I just started to cry. Then my girlfriend comes out of the room fully dressed, and she swore that this was the first time they had ever even kissed. I didn't believe it for 1 second. My girlfriend was surprisingly really calm, and it made me feel even worse. I started to get really angry, realizing that the whole time my sister was living there, they were probably hooking up, and that's the reason why she didn't want to stay with her boyfriend or marry him. So I went into my sister's room, grabbed all her clothes, and started throwing them out of our balcony. I even threw her laptop out the balcony, and we were on the 2nd floor. My sister was just chasing me around the apartment trying to stop me, but I would push her away. Then I noticed my girlfriend is on her phone. I took the phone away from her, and guess what she was looking at? Come back for part 3. After I caught my sister and girlfriend doing the dirty, I threw all my sister's things out of my apartment. Then I noticed my girlfriend is on her phone, so I take it away, and guess what she was looking at? She was deleting her Tinder and Bumble app, which means she was looking for people to date. Mind you, her and I had been in a committed relationship for the past 8 months. My girlfriend had no emotion. She didn't apologize, didn't say anything, but my sister was super emotional, apologizing. Then my girlfriend pipes up and says, you know, this is all your fault. I said, why? She said that I pressured her into moving in with me and that everything happened too quickly, which is not true. We both decided to move in together, and my girlfriend suggested the area we should actually live in. Then she turns to my sister and tells her that she's immature and that neither of us are worth being with. I told her to get her things and leave. She said, you're breaking up with me? I was like, of course I am. And she said that I would never find anyone as good as her. I forgave my sister because she's blood, and we're still living together. My sister has a boyfriend and I'm trying to date people, but my ex still calls me even though she said I wasn't worth being with.
Toxic best friend story time. So I had an off and on friendship with this one girl. In my freshman year, we became friends again. And she had this boyfriend named Nicholas. And they literally fought 24/7. And every time she would fight, she would be like, can you please fix this for me? So she would have me add him on Snapchat, fix it, and then block him. And guys, this literally was happening like 5 times a week. And then after she asked me to do that the first few times, I realized she started going through my phone. And when I say my phone, I mean my whole motherfucking phone. A bitch was going through my Snapchats, DMs, text messages, and I didn't know how to confront her because that's just weird. So the one day I was getting ready at her house because we were about to go out, and she was like, I'm grounded, can I use your phone real quick? And I was like, yeah, just let me Snapchat this last person back. And she goes, no, and rips the phone out of my hand. And she starts going through my Snapchat right in front of me. And I had a streak with this kid named Nick. She goes up to me and says, what the fuck is this? Like for part 2.
Story time about when I lost my virginity to a water slide. So, do you guys know those water slides that you stand in and then they suddenly drop you straight down onto the water slide? If not, look them up on YouTube. There's nothing like them. Ah, yes, the sweet memories of my first time on one of these. I feel that my mental and emotional scars have healed enough to tell this gem. At the time, my girlfriend, now fiance, worked as a photographer for one of those resorts with the indoor and outdoor water parks. One of her perks was that her and a family member or friend could get into the water park for free. So one hot summer day she had off, we both decided to be fun to go there and cool down for the day. While we were there, I discovered one of their most thrilling looking water slides. Basically, you stand in this tube and then the slide operator presses a button and the slide drops you straight down like 90 feet before you actually start going down the water slide. Me, being a thrill seeker, of course, had to try it. So I made a great climb up to the top of the slide, stood in line, and finally it was my turn. Once I got in the tube, the operator told me to keep my legs crossed. Now I'm a pretty big heavy guy, so I was like, that's uncomfortable as fuck, I'm not doing that. So there I was, standing in the tube, having a panic attack from anticipation, with my legs not crossed. The operator finally presses the button and the bottom opens and I fall straight down the water slide. Very quickly I realized why they have you cross your legs. Water shot so far up my ass, so fast, I swear I tasted it in my mouth. My body raced down that slide as I questioned every life choice I had ever made. Once I made it down to the bottom, I sat there for a moment, absolutely violated. I felt like someone in an old episode of Law & Order, Special Victims Unit. I built up the courage to finally stand up, and all I could feel was a nice warm stream of water mixed with shit, and maybe a little bit of blood shoot out of my ass faster than a steamboat geyser at Yellowstone National Park. I quickly got off the slide and ran to the bathroom with a trail of shitty water tailing me as the slide operator stared in awe. They had to shut down the slide for the rest of the day, but man was my asshole clean after that.
Story time about how my boyfriend sent me proof that he was cheating on me by mistake. My stupid, idiotic boyfriend is so dumb. Like, seriously dumb. We've been dating for 6 months and we met on a dating app. As soon as we became boyfriend and girlfriend, he introduced me to all of his friends. And one of his best friends happens to be a girl. A very, very good-looking girl. And no, I didn't even let it bother me because he told me he loved me and he liked me. And obviously, like, why wouldn't he just date her? But here's the thing. Every time I would hang out with her and my boyfriend, she would make it so obvious that she was competing for his attention. She would wear really short crop tops and show off all her cleavage. And if a big group of us went to a bar, she would make sure to get super drunk and make a scene. And anytime that she would get hit on by a guy, she would run to my boyfriend and tell her to save him. And he did everything she told him to. A few weeks ago, we were all at a house party and she made sure to only dance with him the entire night. Of course, this made me uncomfortable, so I started asking him questions. He denied everything profusely, so I just let it go. But a few days later, I get a screenshot that he obviously meant to send to one of his guy best friends about his girl best friend. And this screenshot was a picture that she had sent him, along with a few messages that they had sent each other. He told her that she looked hot in the picture and that she was hoping I would break up with him soon. What more proof did I need? In the screenshot that he sent me by mistake, I read the messages between him and his girl best friend. And the last message was her asking him, so when are you gonna break up with her to be with me? Mind you, my boyfriend and I have been together for 6 months. We had already talked about getting an apartment together and I didn't see this coming whatsoever. So here's what I did. I took a screenshot of the screenshot he sent me and I sent it back to him. When I saw that he read it, he didn't say anything. So instead I tried to call him. Guess what? He blocked me. I was at work at the time, so I couldn't leave my job. But I spent the rest of my shift running to the toilet because I had diarrhea. I was nervous and my palms were super sweaty. Mom spaghetti. But seriously, I felt sick to my stomach. After an hour, I realized that he was totally gonna ignore me. I decided to send the screenshot to her. That's when this girl told me to leave them alone and that my boyfriend didn't want to hear from me ever again. I told her that he was the one that needed to tell me that. Then she sends me a picture of him and her kissing. She was ruthless. Once my shift ended, I drove straight to his house, but he wasn't there. I went to the bar where they usually hang out, but they weren't there either. Finally, a few hours later, I get a message from him telling me that I just need to get over him and that the relationship wasn't going anywhere. Oh yeah, and that he was totally in love with his best friend, but he didn't realize it until he started dating me. He even left all of my stuff in a box outside of his house. It's been a week and I still haven't seen his face. I want to get back with him, but I realize he's a bad guy. What do I do?
My 22 female boyfriend, 25 male, is hiding all of my stuff, and I have no idea why. My boyfriend of 5 months just moved in with me 3 weeks ago. He had some problems with his apartment, damp walls, and it has to be renovated. As my roommate is currently spending some time abroad, I told him it would be okay if he stayed at my place for 4 to 6 weeks. He'll be able to move back to his own apartment by that time. So now we've been living together for 3 weeks, and things started out great. Jealousy had been a bit of a problem between us because we often go out separately, probably once a week, but coming home to the same apartment helped him get over that.
Interesting.
But there has been one new problem. Now, this may seem petty at first, but I'm really at my wit's end with this one. Ever since he moved in with me, things started disappearing and then reappearing one day later in the same place they were missing from. I'm talking about documents, small household items, and food. And it's not like losing keys and then finding them again somewhere. I specifically look for something in a certain place where it isn't, but it's there the next day. For example, I like to take a chocolate bar with me to work in the morning, and for that, I normally have a pack of chocolate bars at home. Shortly after he moved in with me, I woke up to find all the chocolate was gone. I asked him about it. He said he didn't know anything about it. I came home just to find the chocolate bars are in the cupboard again. I asked him. He says he doesn't know anything about it. Quote, maybe you just didn't see them in the morning. We're talking about a large pack with about 12 chocolate bars. How can I not see that? At first, I thought it was maybe some kind of strange humor, but he seems angry when I bring it up, and it's starting to really piss me off because sometimes it's been items belonging to one of my friends that I wanted to give back to them and then couldn't, or it was certain documents I needed for a certain day. Now I have absolutely no idea what this is about. I'm not crazy. I just don't understand at all. He gets really angry when I talk about it, saying I'm making this up just to, quote, cause drama. Why should I? I have no idea what's going on. Any ideas?
It's like the weirdest shit I've ever heard.
While on vacation in a city 8 hours away from home with my girlfriend, we get into a small argument, and this resulted in me leaving her stranded in a downtown area in the middle of the night. I walked back to the hotel 20 minutes nearby to cool off, thinking my girlfriend would eventually make her way back soon after. However, after 2 hours, my girlfriend was escorted back by police. Turned out, her phone was on low battery, leading her to not be able to look up directions on the way back or call for an Uber. She ended up getting lost for an hour and had to later borrow a stranger's phone to call the cops for help. I felt pretty horrible leaving her there. However, given that my girlfriend is already a full functioning adult, I didn't consider the possibility of her phone being dead. She does have a bad habit of forgetting to charge her phone. I threw her a Metro card and stormed away. She ended up overreacting to the whole situation, claiming that I abused her, packing her belongings, and calling her sister on the phone to tell her about what I did. Her sister ended up blowing up my phone, calling me cruel and abusive. Mind you, I only left thinking that she'd be able to get home easily. Even though it was a couple hours past midnight, the city was still crowded with people, probably not dangerous like she exaggerated. When my girlfriend was still crying to her sister, she lied and said that she's now feared for her life, possibly implying that I threatened her. In the heat of the moment, I snatched the phone out of her hands to talk to her sister myself. She suddenly screamed to the top of her lungs, another overreaction, took her belongings, and ran out of the hotel. I chased her down, but she told me that she had already booked a flight home in the early morning and never wanted to see me again. She kept saying that I hit her when all I did was try to explain myself. Her evidence being the very tiny nail mark I left on her face when she was trying to resist, snatching her phone back and didn't let me talk to her sister. 2 hours later, a police officer knocked on my hotel room as I realized that my girlfriend had gone to the police station and reported me for domestic violence. I gave my statement and they advised me to stop contacting her for the night. I didn't want this incident to ruin my hard-earned vacation, so I decided to stay for the rest of the trip like I had initially planned. After I got back, I tried calling her sister and her mom, and they refused to hear my explanation. Her mom even told me that they're still being interviewed by the police to follow up on the domestic violence report. I heard her sister telling me over the phone that I will pay my price. What could that be? My parents are undocumented. Now I'm paranoid that her family, knowing this information, would call the anonymous tip line on my parents. Am I the asshole for getting into a small argument with my girlfriend and then leaving her stranded?
Storytime of how my parents forced me to marry a 40-year-old man when I was 14, but most people from my country, it is called arranged marriage, and it happened to a lot of girls. My family was poor, but the guy I was marrying had a lot of money and promised to take care of me and my family. He also had a 6-year-old son, but he didn't like me. I had met him once before when my mother introduced him to us. She allowed me to stay with him alone. He was very touchy. He told me I was very beautiful and would spoil me because pretty girls like me deserve pretty things. After he left, I told my parents that I was scared to marry him and that I'll do more housework and I'll take care of my other little sisters. My father yelled at me and told me no. So the next week, I went throughout the whole wedding crying. My mom told me to stop because I was messing up my makeup. After we had got married, a couple months later, he grew very abusive. Part 2 will be up next. This is part 2 of how my parents forced me to marry a 40-year-old man and I was 14. So we got married, and a couple months into the relationship, he became abusive. Whenever my food tasted nasty or something wasn't clean right, he called me a lazy wife and told me I was no good and he should have married someone else. His 6-year-old son had no respect for me. The little boy scratched me, would yell at me, throw stuff at me, and my husband wouldn't do anything about it. I would tell him that I didn't like how his son was treating me, and he stood up and tells me to stay in my place and tells me I'm just a bad mother. I'd cried every night, wishing I could go back home to my mother and father. 2 years later, when I turned 16, I found out I was pregnant. He was so happy about it, and for once, he treated me so sweet. He would cook for me, clean, and told his son to be nice because his little brother was in there. When we found out the baby was a girl, he got mad and walked out on me. Part 3 will be up next. This is part 3 of how my parents forced me to marry a 40-year-old man and I was 14. So my husband was excited that I was pregnant, but when he found out I was having a baby girl, he got very upset and walked out of the room. When we got home, he started treating me nasty again. He then started putting his hands on me. He was just very angry at me and never wanted to see his daughter. It took him 3 weeks before picking her up. But even then, he wanted nothing to do with her. As years went on, I became quiet, and I wouldn't speak to him. I would just make sure our home was clean and the children were taken care of. He would just get upset with me that I wouldn't speak to him and accuse me of cheating. He claimed that I was sleeping with other men and that our daughter is probably not even his child. I never understood why, because I was always home because he didn't allow me to go out. But I soon realized he only accused me of cheating because he was cheating the entire time. Part 4 is coming up soon. This is part 4 of how my parents forced me to marry a 40-year-old man and I was 14. My husband would always accuse me of cheating, but I found out he only accused me because he was cheating on me the entire time. Ended up finding out because his son told me. And like I said earlier, his son never liked me in the first place. So when I had made him upset, he randomly said that's why my dad has a new woman. I was off about it, so I went to ask my husband about it, and he admitted to it. He was very blunt about it, and he told me it was because the lady tempted him. I believed him at the time, but as time grew on, I started becoming very insecure. I'd do whatever he wanted, but it was never good enough because he still kept stepping out of our marriage. On my 19th birthday is when I realized I had to figure out a way for me and my daughter to leave him. He didn't even say happy birthday to me, and that was my husband. I had no money, I didn't own anything, but I took a chance, so I packed whatever I could, and I planned for me and my daughter to run away while he went to work. This is part 5 of how my parents forced me to marry a 40-year-old man, and I was 14. So like I said before, I made a plan for me and my daughter to run away while he went to work. When he left, I packed up food, clothes, and took money that we saved up just in case something happened. I woke my daughter up out of her sleep and I told her we need to go. I woke her son up and I told him we were going to the store and that we would be right back. He went right back to sleep and I gathered our things and took me and my daughter to the train station. She asked where we were going and I told her we were going to see our other family. When we got on the train, my daughter went to sleep and I cried because of all the pain I was put through with my husband. I left and I wasn't able to say goodbye to my mother, father, or any of my younger sisters. I didn't want any of them to know because I knew they were going to try to send me back. And leaving was the best decision that I made of my life. It's now been 23 years and I found my now husband and we're living a better life. And I bless God for allowing me to. This story time is from a follower and she really needs advice. By the way, we're calling her Ashley and she's 19. And also, please, no one judge her. So, Ashley is a pole dancer. She does OnlyFans, and she has a 72-year-old sugar daddy that pays all of her bills. And Ashley also has a boyfriend, but he knows the work that she does. Well, recently, Ashley wanted to get out of that type of work and go to school for nursing. For the past couple months, she saved up, she quit her job, and she cut her sugar daddy off. Well, something crazy happened. She found out she was pregnant, and she doesn't know if it could be her sugar daddy's or her boyfriend. She didn't plan out school and a baby, and she's afraid that the sugar daddy won't be in the baby's life due to his age, and her boyfriend doesn't work, and she's afraid that he won't be able to financially support her or the baby. So she thought about getting an abortion and not telling anyone. If she could get some other opinions, that would be great. So please give her some advice down below. Story time of my crazy stalker ex-boyfriend. By the way, we're calling him Michael. So me and Michael started talking in the middle of my senior year in high school. I met him at a friend's party and he seemed pretty cool. He was very affectionate. He would take me out all the time. He introduced me to his family. He said he loved me within the first week. He wanted all of my time and he seemed so perfect. Until suddenly he started to get very controlling. He never wanted me to go out anywhere. He didn't like the clothes that I wear. He didn't like any of my friends. He made me feel guilty whenever I tried to do something for myself. After months of dealing with this controlling behavior, I wanted to leave the relationship. He got mad at me. He was threatening to hurt me and himself if I left. I told him I was done. The next day, like any old regular day, I go to school and I come back home. But when I came back home, I open up my door and I see Michael sitting on my couch with a taser. I'll be back for part 2. This is part 2 story time of my crazy stalker ex-boyfriend. So like I said before, I get home and Michael is sitting on my couch with a taser. I ask him, "What are you doing here? And how did you get in?" He's like, "Your mom let me in. I told her you asked for help for homework." I yell and call for my mom and he's like, "Oh, she left. She said she was going to the grocery store real quick." I turn around and try to leave out the house. He runs and shuts the door. He's like, "Oh, baby, please don't go. Listen, I heard you earlier, and I'm sorry for being so controlling. I just love you so much, and I don't want anything to happen to you." I asked him, "Why did you pop up, and why did you bring a taser?" He said, "I just wanted to surprise you." And I'm like, "For what?" He goes into his pocket and pulls out a ring saying he wanted to get engaged, trying to hand me a ring that looked like he got out of a gumball machine. I laugh at him, and he pushes me against the door. It gets real scary after this. Y'all let me know if y'all want a part 3. This is part 3 story time of my crazy stalker ex-boyfriend. So like I said before, he popped up at my house with a taser. He told me he wanted to get engaged, and basically if I didn't say yes, he was going to hurt me. So for the time being, I pretended like everything was okay, and I told him yes, even though the idea of it disgusted me. He told me he wanted to go on a getaway trip, and that I should pack my bags. I was like, "I have school tomorrow." He said, "You can miss 1 day of school for your man." I told him no, and he grabbed my arm, telling me to go get my stuff. I went upstairs immediately, and when I got to my room, I tried to call the cops, and I guess he overheard me because he busted into my room, starting to fight me. I don't know how, but we ended up in the hallway, and he fell down the stairs. He became unconscious, and at that moment, I ran out of the house, and I called the cops again, but about an intruder. He ended up waking back up and was arrested, but that wasn't just it. Couple years later, he came around stalking me at school, my job, even my friends and family. Here's another toxic best friend story time and how I ended up having to fight her over her own boyfriend. So we're calling her Regina, and at the time we just graduated college, and that's where she met her boyfriend Kyle. They were together for a couple months, but I never met him, and as the story goes on, you'll find out why. 5 months into their relationship, Valentine's Day is coming up, and I wanted to do a double date. The 14th comes, and she canceled on me last minute, and she literally said, word for word, that she doesn't need her boyfriend being tempted to try to cheat on her on Valentine's Day. I didn't like that because she was implying that I would be the reason why he cheated. Anyways, a couple months later, I planned for us to do another double date for 4th of July. So we went to the beach, and of course, we wore bathing suits. I wore a 2-piece, and she wore a 1-piece with a skirt. When we get to the beach, I start to get undressed. She pulls me aside saying, "Why are you wearing that in front of my boyfriend? You look like a whore." Here's part 2 of how I ended up having to fight my toxic best friend over her own boyfriend. So, like I said before, we go to the beach, we start getting undressed, and my friend Regina pulls me aside saying, "Why would you wear that in front of my boyfriend? You look like a whore." I get mad at her and tell her that we're at a freaking beach. What else do you expect me to wear? She starts talking about how I'm always trying to show off in front of guys that she brings around. And I tell her, my date is here also. Why would I do that in front of him or you? She tells me that I'm thirsty and that I'm looking for attention. I laugh because I'm like, she gotta be joking. Then out of nowhere, she takes my towel, throws it at me very hard as though she wanted to hurt me and says, "Put your clothes back on, you." And guys, I'm crazy on this girl. Just know that at the end of the fight, she had a mouthful of sand in her mouth. And of course, the guys pulled us apart. She ended up packing all her things to go with her boyfriend, and I stayed at the beach and chilled all day.